Hi, it's Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio. So this week I'm bringing you another, at least I hope it's another fun project. Something that's just about kind of letting go, getting into flow and just seeing what appears at the end. So I'm going to be making a sort of sketchbook from one large sheet of paper. It might end up that I feel that it's finished as is, or it's something that could be added to in future. You could use any type of paints for this, watercolour, you could use the Inktense blocks as I did in my Wednesday project last week, or as I'm doing today, you can use some acrylics. Now I'm going to bring in some colours today that I don't always use a lot. I'm going to use a lemon yellow. I do use phthalo blue and phthalo green quite a bit in different things, but I'm also going to bring in maybe just some pops of this crimson red. And I'm starting with a large sheet of paper. This is A2, this is cartridge paper from Sea White of Brighton. It's a type of project where you could use a drop sheet. I did think about using this, but there's some other bits and pieces on this that I want for something else, so I'm not going to use this for this particular project. But all I'm going to do is I'm taking a palette knife, but you could use a paintbrush, you could use an old plastic card just to spread paint. I'm not concerned about covering up every bit of white. I'm not concerned about where the paint goes, whether it overlaps, whether it mixes. Not bothered about that at all. Again, it's just about having some fun. I will probably leave the red till the end and bring this in as a kind of, I don't know, a kind of accent colour just to give a bit of pop to things. But here we go. Hope you enjoy. So for me, this is feeling just a little bit too bright just now, a bit kind of Jackson Pollock, I think. But yeah, so I'm just going to calm it a bit by using some gesso again. Just a thin layer over the top, just to kind of knock it back a bit. I think it would look great made into a sketchbook, but I don't want to do something that's going to put me off using it if I decide to use it as a sketchbook rather than leaving it as is. So all I'm going to do is take gesso and spread it out thinly. This is mainly dry, there might be bits where it isn't, so you know, not going to bother if it lifts it, but it'll just be a case of scraping over and just calming that down. If I feel that there's too much, then I'll just come in with a damp cloth and lift a bit of the white off. So let's take it from there. So that's helped knock it back a lot. I've added in a lot of texture just by pushing my palette knife through. Again, some of this might still be wet. I'm still feeling it's a bit bright for me. I started off wanting to use very bright colours. I'm now feeling it's jarring a little. That's maybe just the way that I'm feeling today. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put a final layer, I think it's a final layer, and I'm going to use my sepia ink and just try and knock it back a bit again. I might add in a little bit of the Red Earth. These are both Daler Rowney FW range. But I'll drop this in and I'll use my little water bottle just to spread it out, possibly even spreading it out a bit further with the sponge. It's the type of thing that, you know, you just keep going until you get it to a point where you're reasonably happy with it, even though in future you might paint over it when it's into a sketchbook form, but who knows, just go with the flow today. So here goes. So that changed it a lot, and personally I feel that this is something that I'd be more able to respond to. It's got some great marks, and I use some water and just an old towel just to lift some bits up, and it just adds a bit of texture. But I'm going to have to let this dry well now before I go on to the next stage. But you know, all those glorious original colours are still there, just muted a bit. So we'll let it dry now. So because I missed a little bit of footage, I didn't record it properly or something, I'm going to show you again how to fold these. The piece of paper I was using was also so big it was difficult to get it to fit into the screen. But there is actually a couple of ways of doing this, so I will show you both. And I'm going to show this at normal speed just to make sure that it's clear. So with this first one, I'm taking my sheet, printed on that side, and I'm just going to fold it along that line. And I want it to be nice and straight and have it meeting up as well as possible. Okay, I'm just going to use the back of my scissors to put a nice crease in it. Now the way you can do it next is you can fold that into the middle, that way and that way, but what I like to do is to keep that folded, then take this edge and fold it to here. So again, you're just lining it up. And fold it again, put a crease, and then I go to the next side and do likewise. This is taking it into the centre, lining it up. So we then have 4 folds, so 4 panels. Next we're going to do it the opposite way, so we're going to do 4 again. Turn it this way, just easier. And again, corner to corner, getting it straight along that line, as straight as possible anyway. Now if you had a sheet of paper that's thick and collaged, this might be a little bit more difficult, or if it's got very thick paint. But it's just a case of taking your time with it. And again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this bit out to here, to here. Sometimes have to watch as well when you're scoring it, because you can lift the paint if it's very thick. And again, flipping it over and doing likewise. Okay, so we now have a piece of paper that has 4 panels this way and 4 panels this way. So you can really decide what way you want to make your cuts. So if you wanted, you know, depending on what way you want your pages to go, I tend to do it this way. but there's no right way or wrong way. I'll mark it with a pen just so you can see. But basically we've got 3 lines along here and 3 along there. Experiment, look at the ways that you would prefer the book to look. I'm just going to do it this way. So I am going to start here and cut to that point there. So 1, 2, 3 panels along. With the next one, I'm going to start at this side, start here, and I'm going to cut 3 panels along, so to here, and then jump down again and 3 panels along, and I'm going to cut to here. Now I usually prefer to do this with a craft knife or a rotary tool, so I'm just going to use the rotary tool, but you could just use scissors. So here I am cutting 3 panels long. Okay, cut it a little bit off, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to do this one. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it round and I'm going to cut up to here on this middle one. If you need to, just fold your lines the other way just to make certain you've got a good crease. So you now have a piece of paper that looks like this, basically like an M shape if it's that way. So what I do now is I always start in this top corner and I think about it as folding painted side to painted side and plain side to plain side. So painted to painted, you come to the end, you've got plain, so it's down to the plain. Painted to painted, and we keep going on like that. Painted to painted, down the way, plain to plain. And there you have it. Now it does mean that we've got plain on each side. You can either just go in and paint that, or you could put a cover on it, as I will probably do. But what I like to do now is to glue it because it just holds it in place. So basically just find a starting point. Now that's painted, so we're keeping that as a front cover, so we turn it this way and we're going to put glue on here. I'm just going to glue this very quickly. Okay, and you just follow the book through. Now when it comes to the next bit, it won't lift this way, so you have to lift it this way. And there you have your little glued book. And you know, if you're using just printer paper, this really helps to thicken up the pages. And of course you can keep it like this, or you can go on and decorate it, you know, working it further. Use it for collage, use it for sketching, whatever. Any white bits along the edges, you can fill them in. Now I will put a cover on this, but you'll see that at the end because you'll see how I do it on the bigger sheet. But what I'm now going to do is I'm going to take this piece, and again I'm going to fold it this way, and I'm going to put 4 into it, 4 panels this way. So again, I've got my 4 panels. This time, rather than doing it in 4, I'm going to do it in 3. Now you can just kind of estimate it. I like to just put little marks to mark it roughly as to where I'm going to. Doesn't always work out precisely, but that doesn't matter. So again, I'm going to crease it to there, which is roughly a third of the way up. I'm going to turn it round, and hopefully this will bring it into thirds. I can check roughly. If it's out a little bit, I will deal with that at the end. So this time, instead of having 4 panels and 4 panels, we've got 4 and 3. I'm going to cut it in a similar way, except this time, if I start here, I'm going to cut 3 panels along, and if you put more folds into it, that's okay. I'm going to shut that blind. So I'm going to do it 3 that way, and then from this side 3, which takes me to there. So I'm going to cut up these 3. And flip it round and cut up these 3. Now again, just because this is the way I like to do it, I'm going to start from this top corner. So painted to painted, plain to plain, painted to painted. Drop it underneath, painted to painted, plain to plain, painted to painted, drop it underneath, painted to painted, and so we have this one. Now what you'll find is that by doing the 3, you get more of a square shape. It won't be entirely square, but it's pretty close to being square. So this one is roughly just short of 7 centimetres by, well, this one's almost square, just a little bit over the 7, whereas doing it this way, it's about 5 by, yeah, just over the 7. Again, I'll glue this in the same way. Now you could, in theory, glue these 2 bits together and it would give you a cover that you could just fold over like that. It's going to be a little bit shorter, but you know, you could narrow that up if you wanted. But there we have it. Now what I generally do is, depending on how I'm feeling, but if there are little bits of hangover, I would simply work my way through with a craft knife or a rotary tool just to even it up, but I would normally do that after I've got the cover on. So I hope you find that helpful, and I'll now let you see the rest of the video where I finish the bigger book. So using this large sheet of A2 paper and doing the 4x3 folds, it gives us a book of around 14 centimetres by 14.5 or 5.5 inches by roughly 5 3/4. So this style does almost give us a square. So you could simply just paint the outside pages on this, or you could take something like a cereal box and cut squares to fit and decorate those. I am just going to use an old piece of brown paper that came from a brown paper bag. So I took a piece that's just a little bit bigger than the book itself. You want to build in enough so that it will actually go around the spine, and it just helps hold that spine together. You could just actually use a piece of tape first. I did do one previously where I used a bit of kind of fabric, I think it was. I'll put a link to that video below as well, just to see another example of doing this. But all I'm going to do is use my glue stick. I think in my previous example I did actually use a wet glue, but you know, for this the glue stick is good enough. I'm then also just going to put a bit of glue on the back and front pages, just looking here to see which way I want the front to be and which way I want the back to be. It doesn't really matter, it's all abstract inside. So just getting plenty glue down to make sure that it's all going to adhere well. Now this piece of brown paper does have a few wrinkles in it. That doesn't bother me. I'm just going to smooth those out as best as I can, more just making certain that there's contact. You do of course just want to make sure that there's no glue goes onto the inside pages. You'll see me just pulling it a little bit over that spine, but you just can't help getting a wee bit of a wrinkle in there. Once I've got that fully down, I will then just trim the edges. Now I can see odd little bits here where the pages aren't quite even, so what I will do just off camera is I'll just even the whole thing up by using my rotary tool. And here it is with the edges all neatened up. So all I'm going to do after this is I decide that the cover is a bit plain, so I'm just going to paint it. So hope you enjoy seeing the painting process as well, and I hope you enjoy this little book. I covered the same little books, or the other two little books, in a similar fashion. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you make any of these, do let me know. I'd love to know. But meantime, thanks so much for watching. Do take care. Bye for now.